Let's talk about some poetry terms. So, terms relating to the structure of poetry are verse, which means that the poem has a predictable structure; verse libre, which means that the poem is not in a traditional form, but it does have structure; and free verse, which means the poem has no predictable pattern. Now let's move on to words discussing the syllables of words in poems. We have scansion, which means talking about meter of poetry, and we have feet, which means a group of syllables. Further, if we're talking about syllables with particular words, we have I am, which means the second syllable of a word is stressed. An example of a word that has a second syllable stressed is alone. Choky means that the first syllable of a word is stressed. An example of a word like that would be lonely. Anapest is a foot composed of 3 syllables, where the last is the most stressed. So an example of that would be by myself. A dactyl is a foot composed of 3 syllables, where the first is the most stressed. So an example of that would be poetry. Some more syllable poetry terms are Pyrric, which is syllables that have no stress, for example, of the, and spondy, which are syllables that have only stresses, for example, rage, rage, which is one of the lines in one of Dylan Tennis's most famous poems. So now when analyzing a poem, you can impress your English teacher with all of your poetry term knowledge.